Here.
Bill Clegg,
Here.
Tony Cortez,
Here.
Michael Francis, Rick Gonzalez, Kathleen Kaufman,
I'm here.
John Phelps,
Here.
Clifford Smith.
Here.
Okay, so we do have quorum.
Okay, since the recording just started, I will just say again that we did call this meeting to order. This is September 14th, 2022. And we are here to discuss the Holocaust and slavery memorials at the Capitol complex, the proposals. We did do the roll call, and now we're going to introduce the commission and the staff and any guests that we may have on the call. We're going to start with the commission, I guess, and I'll start with myself. I'm Kathleen Kaufman. I'm the Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Gainesville. I've been in preservation 27 years now, and a former Historic Preservation Chief for Miami-Dade County, a former employee of the Division of Historical Resources. And I was really excited to last year finally be appointed to the Florida Historical Commission. John, do you want to introduce yourself? John Phelps.
Okay. I'm John Phelps, retired effective June 30th. And prior to that time, I was clerk of the House of Representatives for 20 years, staff director of the Senate Rules Committee for 12 years, and director of the Historic Capitol Museum for 4 years.
I can go next. I'm Judy Bentz. I'm chair of the Florida Historical Commission, but I have got COVID and I'm in my 5th day of it. So I'm probably about 70% today. I'm sorry I was late today. This is my second stint on the Florida Historical Commission. I'm an archaeologist, retired from the University of West Florida in Pensacola.
I'll go next because I also have COVID and in my 5th day. The only thing that I got different from you is a wonderful set of meals in New Orleans and an exceptional victory. But other than that, I'm looking forward to completing this task, and thanks for all your leadership, Dr. Bentz. I'm glad that you are part of the team.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I'll go next. I'm Bill Clegg. I'm the Manatee County Attorney, and I don't have COVID.
Hi, I'm John Browning. I'm from Palatka and Palm Beach, and I'm the Florida Transportation Commissioner, and I do not have COVID, thank goodness.
Right, I'll go next. I'm Rosita Kenningsburg. I'm president of the Holocaust Documentation Education Center. We've been in existence, now we're going on our 43rd year. We're non-denominational, non-sectarian. And 43 years ago, it was really amazing because our founding chair was Sister Trinita Flood of Barry University, which was incredibly unusual, and brought on all the college and university presidents onto the Holocaust Documentation and Education Center board. Little did we know at that time, we had the 3rd largest survivor population in North America. Today it's 2nd. And all of a sudden we found out there were 15 survivor clubs and all the presidents came on our board of directors. And it was amazing to see presidents that were university presidents, presidents that were Holocaust survivors. And I remember that first meeting so distinctly because I remember the first Holocaust survivor president getting up to the mic and said, "Please forgive my accent. I never had one till I came to this country." And if that didn't break the ice and everything else, and we were certainly on wonderful road. Our two major priorities is oral history and also education. I'm really proud to say that we are the organization responsible for basically lobbying the mandate, which we finally got passed after 10 years in 1994 for Holocaust education. I had the privilege of writing the legislation, and as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. So I chaired the state task force for 10 years. And so it is a real privilege being a daughter of a Holocaust survivor to at this time be involved still with the monument. I am so glad that we are back and we are focused, and it's a pleasure to meet you all on the committee, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, Dr. Clifford Smith, I'm Senior Planner, Historic Preservation for the City of Sarasota, and I'm on the National Review Board. I'm past chair and now member, and I am a member of the Florida Historic Commission. Nice to meet you all.
Good morning. I'll go next. My name is Ryan Meichenhaus. I'm the Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Property Services here within the Department of Management Services, Division of Real Estate Development and Management, and I am assisting and overseeing and coordinating the efforts for monuments and memorials at the Historic Capitol.
Good morning. I'm Patrick Gillespie. I'm the Deputy Secretary of Business Operations at the Department of Management Services.
I'll go next. I'm Alyssa Lotane. I'm the Division Director for the Florida Division of Historical Resources and the State Historic Preservation Officer.
We have a Maxine Jones. Want to introduce yourself?
Julie. Good morning. I'm Maxine Jones, Professor of History at FSU.
Yeah, I think I saw you like right before.
And
right
Director of the
before we
Women's
do
Studies
like,
program.
Yeah, exactly. Or I got COVID.
If you're
So,
not speaking, could you? If you're not
Yeah.
speaking, could you put yourself on mute? Because we're getting some feedback. Tomlinson, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Angie Tomlinson. I'm the Assistant Director of the Division of Historical Resources, and thanks everyone for joining today. This is important that we get this done and move things forward.
Thank you. Tony Batiste?
I think Tony, he sent a message in the chat that that we could skip him.
No problem. James Call?
Yes, good morning. I'm James Call, and I'm a reporter with the Tallahassee Democrat, USA Today, Florida Network, Capitol Bureau. And thanks for holding this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Florida Main Street?
They said their mic isn't working, so they can skip that intro.
Oh, I see. Got it. Thank you. Tiffany Baker?
I'm sorry, I just joined a minute ago. Are we introducing?
Yeah, just introduce yourself.
Okay. I am the director of the Florida Historic Capitol Museum. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Is there anyone on here that has not yet been introduced?
I'm Sarah Lico. I'm the program administrator for the Division of Historical Resources and helping out with this meeting. And I'm the liaison between the division and the Historical Commission.
Thank you, Sarah, for arranging everything for us. I think I see a new sign-in. Would be?
Yes.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm the Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of State, and I'm just actually listening in. So I can...
Okay, great. I think that's everybody. I'm sorry if I missed anybody. Please jump in if you have not yet been introduced. Okay, we need to adopt the agenda. So do I have a motion from anybody to adopt the agenda that was previously sent to you for today's meeting?
So move the agenda adoption.
I'll second it.
Thank you, John, for seconding. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is adopted. And we are going to move on now to the actual discussion of the Capitol Complex projects that are going to be before us. So take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Ryan Meichenhaus. I'm the Bureau Chief of Property Services and helping guide the different entities in making these memorials successful and hopefully working towards the implementation of the next steps. So I wanted to provide a general overview to the commission this morning and to then go through some specific slides and then hand it over for discussion between members of the selection committee, and then also have those discussions with the commission. So let's see. So for a general overview, DMS was tasked with the process of erecting memorials for both the slavery and the Holocaust causes some years ago, and we wanted a fair and open process, and we followed the procurement for artwork statute and received over 100 submittals per memorial. That was done in coordination with Miss Lee Monica. She produced and routed the call to artists for both memorials through the Code of Works RFP portal. Both were submitted in June of 2019, and the artist qualifications were due in August of 2019. The department worked with Lee Monica to select a diverse review committee consisting of individuals in the arts, architecture, subject matter experts in their fields, and state representation. The review committee, after submission, conducted a blind review of submissions to ensure the art and the meaning were the core focus and not name recognition or firm recognition. Then after review, the committee selected the proposed artist for this project. And since then, DMS has worked in collaboration with the review committee and some stakeholder engagement to refine those visions and details about it. Recently, House Bill 5301 passed in July of 2022, and we're currently working through that process. So I wanted to share my screen. That's just a small history of it. And if possible, I would like to begin sharing my screen for a couple of slides for the good of the group. Sarah, am I able to share my screen? I think it said it was disabled.
I just made you a co-host.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so on your coming up.
We have it.
Okay, thank you. So the Department of Management Services met with the Florida Historical Commission on August 5th to discuss the specific language of the new legislation that passed, which is on your screen for you. So in short, after the monument is approved, after considering the recommendations of the Department of Management Services and the Florida Historical Commission, each of the following offices would give their input. Those are on your screen. So we had discussed on August 5th the need for review and input by the Florida Historical Commission, and were requested to have additional information provided, which was provided on I believe August 16th or so, provided some different feedback, some documents, the proposal and review process. And from there, the commission wanted to meet again to discuss and determine next steps for this process, and then have discussions with individuals from the different selection committees. So I appreciate both representatives who have joined us today for these discussions. Again, as discussed in the last meeting, this is the proposed memorial space on both the Senate and the House side of the Capitol Plaza. And on the screen now is the two proposed artists' memorials for both the Holocaust and the Slavery Memorial. Again, the artists have been selected by each review committee. We've received design proposals and committee feedback, and we're preparing to implement House Bill 5301. The proposed location of the Holocaust Memorial is there on the House side on your screen near the red arrow, next to Monroe Street and Jefferson intersection. and the slavery memorial is proposed on the Senate side on the upper deck, again, near the Monroe and Madison intersection. And so from this presentation, I wanted to turn it over to the commission and the committee members to discuss any outstanding questions the commission may have or considerations for the art that was selected. And if approved, proceed in accordance with House Bill 5301, and if not, discuss next steps. So I just wanted to open it to the groups to discuss.
Okay, fellow members of the commission, does anybody have any?
Right, Ryan, this is John Phelps. I would like to ask you about the weight tolerance question, which has come up from time to time. These the two pieces appear to have a fairly substantial weight. And the reason we had to redo the garages on both sides was because the weight that was on the over the garages from the planting. Is this do these two monuments meet those specifications as far as you're concerned?
So the information that we have available to us is that they may fall within those weight restrictions, but we are having a review completed to ensure that they are. Once these pieces are either approved and move forward or not, that's when those further discussions would occur. And any engineering or review that would need to occur on that, we would have completed to ensure that the garage is able to sustain the weight of the proposed memorial.
Okay.
I would like to ask to have the Holocaust Memorial plan interpreted.
You have, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
I'll get on it.
Okay, what we did not want is we did not want a wall hanging or we wanted something very interactive that would be educational, where we could use QR codes, where we can have an educational experience all the way around. Somewhere there will be an eternal flame. There was discussion about electricity, and so that at night, or especially during the annual days of remembrance, would usually fall in April, so that the monument itself could be lit up. We're still working on exactly what will be on all the different sides. There was discussion about putting actually tattoo numbers on the one side of the wall, and those of us that work very closely with Holocaust survivors truly understand that that is really very inappropriate and not apropos. What is more important is that when you come up to it or when you see it from a distance, you recognize that it is a memorial and hopefully even to the Holocaust. I have been involved in museums, helped build a museum in Washington and memorials in various parts of the world and even locally at cemeteries. And the most important part that we have always found, it's not just there standing and you've got to try to figure out what it is. There is also discussion of quotes. So we would have certain quotes on there, quotes like from Anne Frank or Eisenhower, Elie Wiesel. But we have the second largest survivor population in North America. And in some communities in South Florida, we have #1. And what we thought the most important thing is that we would have something interactive where survivors have a message on there, which you could easily do with QR codes, something that's very relevant as we are doing in our museum. We're building out the first interactive learning center. We have the largest self-produced standardized oral history collection. This is something that we really wanted to focus on. Some of our survivors were very involved with a lot of the programming that had happened over the last 42 years or since the mandate. But as far as specifics all over the place yet, no. We are still working on that. The one area that there was a major concern about that we could not start because the funding that originally was allocated to this particular monument, according to the sculpture and an artist, and according to members that were familiar with costs, is that there was going to be a 40% increase. And so it's a matter of, is it granite or is it limestone? I'm not familiar with any of that. That's not my area of expertise. Is it bronze? Is it anodized aluminum? So they were working on that. Some of the materials that eventually will be decided, that might make a major difference in the weight. I guess there are lighter materials. And the other area there was a major concern about was not having to have a lot of work and follow up and keeping it up, and that certain materials last longer instead of changing out those materials in 10, 20 years. So we did not get into a lot of other discussion with the artist because at that point, the budget really was not there for him to continue, did not know which way he could continue, what materials, and therefore we had not finalized any of the details that were going to be on this particular monument.
Thank you, but what's the point of the solid triangles that are on their tips? I mean, why did you select that?
I think what we liked about it was the way the triangles also represented the points of, I would say, it's really about reflection, remembrance, and responsibility. The artist felt this was something close to possibly a Jewish star. He was thinking of various areas in whether we are hopeful, whether there were different points that he thought of. We found it extraordinarily interesting because of the amount of space. But I think that's something we have to go back and really discuss with the artist even further because we never got into a lot of that at the time.
Well, thank you. But let me ask you one final question. Is this design of the solid triangles been decided on, and we just have to decide whether we like it or not? Or
yeah, this is the design we all agreed on. And yes, I guess you have to decide whether you like it or not.
But it might not make any difference whether we like it or not, right?
I don't know. I'm not the legal, department or spokesperson for the state of Florida. All I know is I was part of a selection committee, and this is something that was rather unique and represented well, we felt. Plus, it gave us a lot of different interaction and opportunity to do the things we wanted. Like I said, we didn't get a lot of time with the artist, and maybe that's something that there might be an opportunity for you to speak directly to, or maybe ask certain questions. But Ryan, you might have the answer to that. I have no idea.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the question, Dr. Benz. So we have to come to an agreement before pursuing the House Bill 5301. So if it is not in the commission's best interest for, from a historical perspective, we would want to receive that feedback and better understand what that need is for the monument to reflect so that we could have those conversations going forward with the artists and the committee. So I think the statute reads such that we need the approval of the commission, but if the commission found issue or had certain considerations to be taken back to the artisan committee, we would definitely need that information so that we could continue this process. So we either need that approval or feedback that we could continue on this process on the artist side.
That's why
I have two questions, if you don't mind.
Could I just say something in comment? That's why I would strongly suggest that you have a discussion with the artist. I think it is only fair that he shares exactly why he portrayed the structure the way he did.
Steve, did you want to say something?
Yes, ma'am. I was under kind of the, well, I have two questions. First, ma'am, and this is for the Holocaust Memorial. So can you talk to me about what outreach you've done to other Holocaust groups? I mean, I have my own personal one up in Tallahassee at HERC. I know they've been involved in some form or fashion, but I personally was kind of at a point of time that we were much farther along with this than this appears to be. I mean, this appears to be very, almost like a fourth of the way finished. And if we're really gonna push this forward to other groups within the legislative process, I think that there an incredible amount of work needs to be done because I think the building's beautiful, but I'm not really sure that this is, I'm sure it's, I was just expecting more detail and more information, and unfortunately, I seem to be missing. So I'll just fall back with my original question: is can you tell me about your other outreach to other groups?
Absolutely. So we've been in existence for 43 years. Our outreach to other groups is we do a lot of prejudice reduction programs. One of our most, I would say, sought after is called Student Awareness Days. We could have 1,000 students in the room with approximately 100 survivors and 100 facilitators. They all go through this training process. So if we're looking at, for example, a county such as Broward County, 10 students are seated at every table with a survivor and a facilitator. And the day begins, which is incredible, where the survivor turns to the students and says, I'm a Holocaust survivor. I should say that when the students walk into the room and they are seated at a table, they're separated from their friends, their schools. All of, I would say, the students come from all private, public, parochial schools, kids at risk schools, and the teachers make the decision as to which students are chosen. I'm focusing on this one because it is one of the.
Oh, bad news.
Yeah. Here's
An annual visual.
Oh, there's she back.
Wait, you froze just for like the last minute of what you were saying. So just repeat the last couple of things you just said.
All right, because this is one of the sought after programs, even during COVID, we transported this actual Student Awareness Day program online because the counties came to us and said, you can't stop it. So what has happened during these days, the survivor comes in and the students are, what am I doing here? I'm being separated from my friends. I have to turn off my phone. I'm sitting in front of an ancient person in their opinion. And suddenly the survivor turns to them and says, I'm a survivor of the Holocaust. I was your age in my teenage years when all this happened to me. Suddenly, all my family was taken away, everything I've lost. And this is what prejudice and hatred has done to me. How many of you seated at these tables have ever experienced? You suddenly see the body language change. The students turn in, they tell the survivor, nobody discusses this with them, not at home, not at school. And at the end of the day, after discussions and table discussions and films, that we use, as well as, for example, we have featured speakers that we fly in, or we take them from the community, that what we call closers, and we talk about prejudice making choices. Many times the survivor also speaks from the podium so that everybody understands that not every experience was the same. And at the end of the day, the students get up and they share their feelings. I will tell you, in the 39 years, 2 years, just before COVID, we had a student get up and tell us that he begged his teacher to come back and be able to attend this again. And he says, I want everybody to know, because of this program, I did not commit suicide. I have Asperger's. I have been bullied all my life. So programs like this make a difference, have an impact. Of course, we run an annual visual arts and writing contest. We have our survivors that go to schools, they come here, we have tours, we have exhibitions. We've had some of the most major in the world, the Operation Finale, all about the trial and capture of Adolf Eichmann. We've had these exhibitions come from either the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum or various places throughout the world.
Okay, thank you.
I could go on, but maybe you and
I know. No, well, I think we need to just stay on topic of the actual memorial that's being planned for this. I think we're all super sensitive to the importance of making sure future generations understand what's happened here.
Madam Chair, could I just make a quick point about, the process and the decision that we're being asked to make?
Sure.
Okay, so looking at the statute that's recited in the presentation, it talks about the commission making recommendations, and it references our own statute, our own governing statute in paragraph 9, which says that our responsibility is to make recommendations on the design and placement of monuments authorized by general law to be placed on the premises of the Capitol complex. So that's what we're being asked to do today. And from my standpoint, the commission could decide to make, whatever recommendations we feel are appropriate. But that's really all we do. We're not approving the design. We're not the design committee. But if we want to recommend that they consider other options or whatever is within the role and discretion of the commission, we can do that. But I agree with Steve. We should try to move this along by doing our part and making those recommendations so that they can move on from there and it doesn't have to necessarily come back to us. Thank you.
Kathleen, I'd like to ask a question if I could.
Sure.
I like the design. I think there's tension in the design that's intentional. And I think the tension surrounding this issue is always dramatic. And that's just the way I read it. It's an abstract work. But I would like to ask the HDEC person, is this a solid piece? It's not clear from the rendering whether this is planes that are intersecting at the top, or is that a solid piece? It appears there's some light behind the surface on the back side. Am I reading that correct?
I think it's, how should I say? I think it's not solid, but there's like a hollow portion to see, how much could withstand, or what is exactly necessary to have this structure look the way it does. I just want to say that when we first made the decision, our first request, I've been involved with this for 3 years. And there's a lot that's happened and a lot of changes and different people who were part of this. And Ryan can certainly attest to that as well. And we had gone from where initially we were very much wanted to speak to the artist, and that took quite a while. When we looked at this first, we were just a committee. We didn't get answers because the artist was not available or for whatever reason. When we finally did speak to the artist, what had happened is there was so much, and I liked the way you used tension on that, but it was a little tension in that particular meeting because it was like, you have to change the materials. We don't have enough money, and the budget became the #1 priority. So again, I would like to say, I am sure that once you speak to the artist and they know what materials they're going to use, that they can describe this, they can change this, they can adapt this. I mean, I've done memorials all over. It's just a matter of what the budget is, when it is, and for us to understand what could be used and what can't be used. We never made it to that point. So I understand how you feel. The committee members that I've worked with are frustrated because it's 3 years and we could not move faster. There were a lot of things that happened along the way that were not controllable, but I understand you. So I'm sorry I cannot answer your questions because we would like to know the same answers to the questions you're asking.
Could I elaborate just further a little bit in the way of a recommendation? I do think this should be an educational
Which is what it is, right?
And I think you would agree. I like the idea that you earlier suggested of certain quotations from certain authors, Elie Wiesel, for sure, Anne Frank and others that make. And I remember visiting the monument in Dachau.
Right.
The one clear message was never again.
Right.
And something along those lines, I think, would be helpful to young people that might visit this monument. As far as the materials and so forth go, I can understand why that would still be in play to some degree.
So just to give you an idea, we had submitted, this is pages of the quotes. All the members of the committee submitted some. We had submitted these. We were trying to move ahead in the actual content, but as far as the structure itself, we couldn't do much because he didn't know what to work with, and he kept on telling us that. So But as far as the whole it has to be educational. And we really wanted it to be that interactive opportunity where you just don't stand there and you're wondering what you're looking at. You stand there, you get involved, and you get it.
Well, when you compare the slavery monument proposal to the Holocaust monument proposal, they're very different. Anybody walking down the street would understand the message in the slavery monument memorial that's proposed to us. Anybody. You could be driving in your car on Monroe Street and look over there and see people in chains, and you got it. With the Holocaust, it's completely different. I'm afraid that perhaps there's been a bit of a line crossed between a memorial and a mini museum. But abstract is fine, you know, but these memorials have to have a really important first impression. And the first impression to that is not the Holocaust. You have to get in there and get and see it. So at any rate, I think that I agree with Steve that it is awfully undeveloped. So what we're going to recommend, let me ask one more question. Ryan, what exactly do you want to do with the bill? And give us the gist of the bill that you've been drafting for this coming session.
I'm unaware of a particular bill.
Oh, good.
Unless you had, yeah, there's no bill to my knowledge.
Right.
Again, this process this spring sort of slowed down due to our understanding that there was consideration for House Bill 5301. So we just wanted to ensure that what was proposed to this commission was, you know, where it currently stood, what designs were selected by those committees. And yes, there is some fine tuning that's occurring, but we didn't want to, you know, proceed with any of that without having, you know, considered what the commission's feedback was.
Thank you. That's a comfortable answer.
I'd like to make one other just point, and then I'm going to be quiet. I mean, I have no concerns with the architectural view of this. I mean, it's what the design came up with, the groups did. I'm hopeful that, you know, Jewish groups and gypsy groups and alternative lifestyle groups, you know, are all a part of this, some type of discussion, because they were all caught up in the various Holocausts. My only real concern is that this thing appears to be maybe a third of the way done. And I was hoping for more like, this is the descriptions that we're going to use, and this is how we're going to, you know, tell the story. And that's really where I'm more at. You know, what the groups decide to do, you know, they, you know, the best, you know, interpretation I have of the Holocaust was seeing a gentleman in Auschwitz was my grandfather's name, George Zelensky, as one of the people that passed there. Come to find out that Zelensky is a very common name in Poland. But nonetheless, I would just say that, you know, frankly, I'm kind of at let's move this thing. I'm not really sure. I'm really more of let's hold down to this thing for a little bit and come back to us with some more details. That's where I'm feeling for. But, you know, I also recognize that this thing has been sitting around for a while, and, you know, COVID and budgets and stuff like that. I understand that. But I'd also say that I think, you know, with this governor's leadership, I think you and the memorial will be funded, so it will be well done. So, like I said,
I just wanted to add on, this is not a building, these are walls. These are walls that fit together. Okay, that's one. And your point, absolutely. We are non-denominational, and the Holocaust is, as Elie Wiesel said, although all Jews were victims, not all victims were Jews. And that is definitely going to be portrayed here. This is all part of it. This has affected everyone. And so this is the message that's going to be there as well. There's a flame that's supposed to be there. There are all kinds of things that when you will see them from the distance, and exactly what you said, that you want to know from the distance that that is going to be a Holocaust or is a
Kingsford,
Holocaust
Ms.
memorial.
Kingsford, can you hang on a second? I want to say a couple things about what I think before we maybe move on to discussing if we're going to do a recommendation and what that might be. I love the concept of both memorials, of where they are, the placement, the fact that they're going to be interactive and activate those plazas with people. I think that's amazing. The Holocaust Memorial, I know this artist, very, very familiar with the slavery one that he did at the University of Virginia. And it's a stunning, stunning piece. And he's a Gator, so there you go. But I have not an issue, but a little bit of a concern putting forth I don't mind the design, the basic concept. It doesn't really say much to me about Holocaust or what it's supposed to be unless I'm up close to it, I guess. But from what I heard in this presentation is that we don't even know the actual materials. We don't know what's going to be on the panels, because now what we were submitted and what we were shown is going to be on the panels is now determined not appropriate. So, I mean, I understand that this has been held up for COVID and other reasons, but it's also kind of too important a thing just to rush along because we're trying to get it done and not really knowing what it's going to look like. I mean, I do like the fact that it is a very severe monument, but I don't get the sense of the tragedy it's also trying to convey at all from looking at it of what we were presented in our materials. That's my only concern. And I don't necessarily, I think we should maybe move forward with some kind of recommendation, but I would also really like to, I think we owe it to ourselves to really know what this thing is going to look like.
I've got one quick comment. You guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Tony, go ahead.
And I apologize. I've been on and off of calls and bouncing around to a few meetings. So I'll, like Steve said, I'll make a quick comment and then I'll put it back on mute. I think the whole reason we're here, as the gentleman from DMS mentioned, is, there's new legislation, there's new law that adds a layer of vetting to this, because I think some of the members of the legislature and with the approval of the governor, wanted there to be additional, whether it be oversight. And I think people were seeing monuments pop up in places, and partially because of term limits or for whatever reasons saying, wait, did we approve that? What, who put that there? So they wanted another layer, is my understanding of legislative intent. So I think the FHC is responsible for all of it, and approval is in the plain reading of the law, approval of design, materials, placement. And I don't know exactly what money's been set aside, so I can't talk to the budget, but it is an approval thing. I don't think it's just a, rubber stamp. So I think we can say we approve for now, we need approval. We'll give final approval at a later date contingent on A, B, and C. I think that's an okay course of action. But that's my understanding. So I do consider it a responsibility for approval, not just a discussion and move on from there.
Thank you, Tony. If there aren't any other, yes, Alyssa?
I have more of a procedural question, and I want to be really careful not to direct the commission on what to do. But I guess my thoughts were about if there was going to be any accompanying text to go along with these, and whether there was a potential, since we're charting new territory here, to maybe approve visually what will be there, but at a later time, if there are any inscriptions or text that would go along with that, if those two processes would be separated, or is this expected to be one recommendation?
From the department's perspective, we're learning this as well. We're working through the kinks with you all currently. So, we do imagine there being text associated with both of these memorials in the future, but that has not yet been discussed and or even drafted at this point. Right now, we see the memorials as what they are and what each committee selected. So for the purposes of these meetings, we were trying to push forward the proposed memorial, the general look. Everything, every single detail has not been defined yet, which could, it seems like that's a consideration that the commission has concern of, which is a reasonable one. But at this time, there is no defined detail for any plaque or any QR codes and what that language might be presented to the visitor of a memorial. I don't know if consideration wants to be given to an approval of the general design and then have another future meeting to discuss specific text. That could be a solution, but I just don't know how far or what degree the commission would like to be involved in the recommendation portion of the process.
Well, Ryan, it was my understanding that it's not just like a tweak of the design, but that we don't even really know what the proposed materials are going to be at this point, because what was presented to us may not actually be it. And on top of that, what's going to be on the panels, text wise, design of the panels or whatever. So I appreciate the urgency of this matter, but I'm still concerned that. But I love the idea Tony gave us about, maybe moving forward a recommendation with caveats that it return to us with once it's fleshed out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest. We could recommend moving forward with it, but providing additional detail about the materials and the inscriptions and anything else you're concerned about, and that it be resubmitted to the commission once that detail is provided.
Is that a motion you want to make, Bill?
Sure, that's my motion.
I'll
Yes,
second.
ma'am.
Mr. Phelps, was that you seconding?
It was.
Is it Dr. Phelps?
No. Mr. Lee.
We have so many doctors on the commission. I don't want to mess it up. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in, well,
Could I amend that motion to sort of reflect what Tony was trying to accomplish?
sure.
Which was.
Well, if it's okay with the motion maker, go ahead.
Let's hear the amendment.
Amendment to the motion if the sponsor is willing. And that would be to attach certain conditions, express conditions. And you said a couple of them. You said, for example, the site, the quotations, it might be on there, the materials, it might be used, etc. Those kinds of things I think we should attach as conditions to that motion.
Well, I'm amenable to anything else you want to include in the motion as things we want them to provide detail on.
Others might have ideas to include as well. But those would be certainly be two of those that I think I'd like to see again.
So I mentioned the materials and inscriptions. What do you want to add to that?
I think any kind of lighting components.
Lighting would be another. It appears to have some kind of lighting component to it, and that would certainly be one.
Perhaps informational text if there's a plaque. Something else I heard earlier.
Yep.
So really what we're doing is we're approving these in concept.
Yeah.
We're not approving them any farther than that. That they need to go back and flesh out the details and come back to us before we'll give it a recommendation for approval.
Can I ask a question based on what you just said?
Well, can we get through our
Okay.
motion and approval first, and then you can clarify?
Okay, so
I
I'm
might change the
happy,
motion, that's all.
I'm happy to amend the motion to add that they also address lighting and informational text. If the seconder agrees to that.
I would agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
maybe it could be stated a different way, and that would be, we would approve the concept insofar as it has been presented to us. However, any details we would like to see again when it comes back. Something
Okay.
along those lines.
We have a motion and a second.
If you'd like, I'll try to restate the motion since we've had some dialogue about it. It'll be easier for staff then to know exactly what, to memorialize it.
That would
So,
be great.
yeah, because I wasn't really trying to make the motion. You asked me to, and so I turned it into one. So I move to approve the design and concept and recommend that the department address materials, inscriptions, lighting, informational text, and bring that back to us before finalizing. Does the seconder agree with that?
I would agree.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'd like to abstain.
We have one abstain.
Are you a voting member? Is she a voting member of the commission?
She's not.
I didn't think so either.
I think she, so it's not an abstention.
It's mute.
Okay, now that the motion has been made, Ms. Kinningsburg, did you have something you wanted to respond to?
Yes, when you say that we will go back, does that mean that you're coming back to our committee and we're to then go back and make all these decisions and changes and suggestions, I should say, and give back to you?
I believe that's the intent.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, here is the problem, which I'm sorry if I didn't state it well enough to be understood. We could not make any decisions on anything until we knew what materials could be used. We could not decide on what materials could be used because we did not know what kind of a budget we had. The initial budget wouldn't cover anything that was the initial budget from years ago. That was the major problem. That stopped the process completely. We had asked, can we go back to the legislature and see, just before this past legislature agreed on the budget, if we could have the budget increase so that the designer, architect, artist could go ahead and give us something with all of this. None of that could be done until he knew what the budget was. That's why there were no decisions made on any of the materials and whatnot. There was also an area where there was going to be a flame, an eternal flame that I said earlier, where you were going to have the names of the various concentration camps, etc. But nothing could be decided until he knew what the budget was.
Oh, understood, but I don't think it's the historical commission's position or role to determine what the budget is. So it's our role to review the.
Well, your recommendation, okay, so then Ryan, help me out here.
That's right.
How does that
That's right,
recommendation work?
So thank you, Rosita. We'll have to have further conversations now that the law has changed to ask for the recommendations. We've received now recommendations, and now we'll have to have conversations to answer those questions or to provide the detail that's been requested of us. So how those conversations take form, I'll be in touch soon. I don't know what that looks like, but we'll have to, put our heads together to make sure that we could answer those questions, because until we can provide that information to receive that approval, then we would move on to that next step. So I'll be in touch.
Ryan, wasn't there was money appropriated at one point in time, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember what that dollar figure was?
I believe it was 400,000.
Okay, and I suspect that they could probably ask for an additional amount in the next budget year. I mean, in a perfect world, I'm not really sure how far you can take this without some of the basic decisions being made about materials, inscriptions, lighting, because I suspect if we're going to have, some concerns that other people, we're going to want a little bit more additional details. My thoughts.
And
I just
Ryan,
want
this
to
may
say,
give you, it may help you, because right now, the Historical Commission is going to be a stopper until we have more information, which requires more budget information to the artist. If it's $400,000 and they're not going to give them a penny more, then what can they do with $400,000? I get budgets like that all the time, no, this is it. Tell me what you can do. But anyway, it might help you, Ryan.
Dr. Smith?
Yeah, I've dealt with these kind of things before, and I would give a suggestion. I think your committee needs to make some specific decisions. This is exactly what we want. And that's how you build your budget. What's the materials? What are you trying to accomplish? If it's going to have an internal flame, that's part of the design that you're going to put forward. Then you can get the artist to give you a budget. Then if it's 450,000 or 500,000, then you have a figure that you can go back with and say, we have 400, we need an additional 100. And then you're dealing with real numbers on a very specific design. I think if you don't make some specific decisions, you're never going to get to a specific budget.
I totally hear you, totally understand, totally in agreement, but Ryan will tell you when we got to that point, everything was stopped. So here we are again. I am just here today as a member sharing with you where we are, what we try to do. We've committed 3 years into this, but given our time and expertise and whatever, it's been an honor and a pleasure. And we were frustrated we couldn't, and I'm just here to explain to you what happened. So
Thank you, Rosita. I'm glad we're at this point where we're helping move this along in some form or fashion. But again, what the budget is and how you arrive at what you need and how you ask for it does not involve the Florida Historical Commission. We're just here to review the proposed projects and whether they're appropriate for the Capitol complex, which includes a major historic building as part of that complex, historic spaces. Anybody else have any last comment?
If I could just add one thing, this will be a very dominating presence on the grounds of the Capitol. I think we owe it to the future to be sure this thing is done the way it should be. It answers all the questions that we've asked about it. I think it's a beautiful piece, personally. I don't have any problem with the design of it at all. The details part, sometimes I think we need those details to move ahead and make a recommendation on behalf of the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps. Do we have any comments? Is that all the comments from the commission? Do we have any comments from the public that may be on the call? Yes, Ms. Sybil. Wait, you're muted. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, unmuted. Well, this was a very interesting meeting and I enjoyed listening to it. As the prime mover of the original bill in 2016, we allocated $100,000 to the Holocaust as well as to African Americans. So it's 6 years and I've been wondering what's happening. And I know there was COVID for 2 years. I know there was construction on the Capitol. And it's been taking a very, very long time. Cost of materials has definitely gone up in 6 years, as we witnessed throughout the country, our country, as well as the world. When the money was set aside, it was set aside under the auspices of Senate President Don Gates, who was very concerned about the Holocaust. In fact, Governor Rick Scott came down to the Jewish Community Center in Broward County and signed the bill. It was a big deal because this was, we still think, one of two or one of one Holocaust monument centers in the entire country. So we were making history. At the state capitol, correct. So I understand what Rosita is saying about a concept, materials, and making it interactive and educational. But, and I thank the Historical Commission and as well as this current legislature for moving it ahead now, because it's time. It's time. And if it does happen within this current legislature, that it starts getting built and the first piece of sand or whatever happens, it will make a big difference, because there's been a tremendous rise in anti-Semitism in this country. And it needs to be stopped or remembered or thought about at the Capitol, and what the legislature and what we can do to provide information. So those are my thoughts. And if you have any questions, I also think you should talk to the architect. If you have questions about the concern about what his interpretation of this monument is. But I think Rosita did a very good job in explaining this beautiful monument that will be reflective of of Tallahassee, as well as the legislature, as well as the state. So thank you again for all your work and input. It was a very interesting meeting, and I hope we can move this forward this year and get it done. Now, as far as funding, there may be funding for this somewhere. And I heard the Historical Commission say that they are not people who ask for funding. The committee does not ask, but maybe this new commission could ask for, when they talk about materials, the cost of materials. I mean, you're asking about materials. Well, what about the cost of the materials? Or DMS can follow up with cost. And I know there's been a lot of changeover in DMS. So I think now we have somebody who's been there for 2.5 months. Maybe he'll be there for many more years. And I'm trying to be optimistic that this will get done. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address this good group.
Well, thank you for your comments. And I can't believe it's been 6 years.
6 years, I can't believe it either.
But hopefully, hopefully at the end of the day, a lot more money will be appropriated to this than the original $100,000. So
thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, thank you, Historical Commission members, so much for taking the time out of your day to talk about this. Thank you, Ryan and Rosita and all the other people who are helping with this project and who helped get here today. Again, thank you so much to staff, always.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Do we still have to do the slavery memorial, or
yes, yes, but
we need to do that today, don't we?
There's that.
Sorry,
There's
my
that.
apologies, but we do need to get that done.
There is that. Okay, so let's move on to the. I still thank everybody. Thank everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Thank you, Rosita, for your
Thank
time.
you. Bye.
Okay, we are going to move on to the, thanks, Bill, to the slavery memorial. Staff, who is going to be presenting this one?
Ryan, you all scheduled Dr. Jones. Dr. Maxine Jones is here from the committee. So Ryan, I don't know if you have anything additional to introduce this.
No, and again, thank you, Dr. Maxine Jones, for your time today. Just the same conversation, we were hoping to have with the commission regarding the proposed slavery memorial, and didn't know, what questions or thoughts you would have for Ms. Jones.
Well, I wasn't sure which of the renderings had been chosen. So I really don't have much to say except the one that I think was chosen, I thought was the more educational one. There were two renderings. One was a little more reflective, and the other one I thought was more educational. And the one that was shown up on the screen a few minutes ago is the one that I thought was the most educational. I don't know anything about the materials or anything like that. Well, we did have an opportunity to talk to the artist. He took a lot of our suggestions into consideration, it seems. And I think the one that was chosen takes us through, I guess, transitions from slavery to the breaking of the chains.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. The rendering we got in our submittal or our package is a series of bronze sculptures of people in chains on a platform. And there's one other bronze sculpture of a person looking in at the people in the circle of chains. Is that the one you're referring that you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just so we're on the same page, is this the actual final monument that we're supposed to look at? Or is this someone tell me, which one are we actually supposed to look at? If they're two or they're one?
So if I may, there were two that the committee was very interested in, and ultimately the recommended version was that you were provided the circle of chains. So
Okay.
That is the one that is being requested feedback on.
So that is the official monument, what we're going with.
That is the recommendation that has been put forth. Yes.
Ms. Jones, do you have any real thoughts on this monument? I mean, are you in support of this and happy with the way it's been reflected?
Yes, I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but this was the one that I preferred because I thought it was more educational than the other one. And as I said, this is the first. I didn't know which one had been chosen, but this was the one that I thought was most representative of the slave experience.
Dr. Jones, and I apologize for not calling you Dr. Jones, but
I don't care about that.
that is the sculpture we were provided in our materials. So Stephen, I think that's the one we're supposed to consider.
Okay, and then my other question would be is if Mrs. Jones doesn't, does the group reflect that she was a part of, understand, and this is the one they want and want to move forward with?
We made suggestions on both renderings. I don't know if we settled on one. When I left the meeting, I wasn't sure that this was the one that had been chosen. I don't know who made that final decision. I don't recall our making that final decision as a group.
Well,
but it's been a while. But it's been a while since we've met.
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate that. I mean, in a perfect world, I would feel more comfortable if the group that was instrumental in putting this together and giving thoughts were fully supportive of this idea, or the one that has been brought forth to us today. Maybe I'm wrong.
Hey, Stephen. So the original group who selected the artist did have two designs to choose from, and my understanding from the meeting minutes and the recordings that I was that were made available to me was that the Circle of Chains was the preferred memorial, and then stakeholder engagement was conducted with different groups, which also preferred the circle of change. So that's why this is being brought forth today, because that was by and large the more interested or the more approved. There were two very good designs that both that the committee reviewed, and this was the one that was ultimately selected.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Jones, I really like your assistant there.
Yes, she comes in handy.
Do any of the commission, Florida Historical Commission members have any other comments? I do have a question. Is this, and maybe you don't know, but is this memorial strictly the sculpture? Or are there any interpretive, any kind of informational panels or anything that's going to go along with it or around it? I understand. I totally understand. If not, a lot of memorials, I mean, it's clear what it's kind of memorializing, but I was just curious.
I think there's supposed to be some QER codes.
Mr. Phelps, did you have something you wanted to?
I don't have a very good sense of the scale of this. It looks like a model, but does Ryan have an idea of how, perhaps the diameter of it, just to get a sense of that?
Yeah, I believe that the figures are supposed to be life size. So between, again, 5 and 6.5 feet. Actually, in the rendering that you all probably saw, where the individual is looking at the group there on that platform, actually that person is not part of the artwork. It was just a scale for the artist to show that someone looking at it would be approximately the same size. So it would be life size figures.
Okay. I think we know enough about this particular proposal to go forward with it, Madam Chair. And I would make a motion to approve it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay. I think that's all the memorials we have to review today.
That's all from us.
Thanks again, Bill, for keeping us on track.
Sure. Don't forget public comment.
Is there anybody from the public on this call that wants to make a comment on the slavery memorial? Okay, seeing none. Do I have a motion from the commission to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Again, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Thank
Hope
you.
you get better, Judy and Steve. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thank
Feel
you.
better. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a great day.